everyone! What do you think are the factors that can affect the spread of fire? Do you have any idea? If not, then allow me to share my gathered knowledge about fire-related topics. For better understanding, please consider these relevant informations that I am about to share with you. There are three factors that can affect the spread of fire: the weather, fuel, and topography. Let's start with the weather. Weather includes relative humidity, air temperature, and wind. Warmer temperatures and lower relative humidity make the fuels more receptive to ignition. Stronger winds supply oxygen to fire, preheating the fuels in the path of the fire, and transport embers ahead of the flaming front. When hot, dry, and wind conditions occur simultaneously, fire can spread quickly. Second, fuel. Fuel includes fuel load, fuel moisture. Fuel load, it is a very low volume so fuel can result in a low intensity, creeping fire. On the other hand, large volume of fuel could result in a blow-up fire that is difficult to control. The more fuel burning, the more heat produced. Fuel moisture. Fuel moisture is strongly influences fire ignition potential and flammability. The drier the fuels, the easier they are to burn. Fuel moisture is also an integral part of predicting fire behavior and fire spread probabilities. Lastly, topography. Topography is the most stable variable in the fire behavior triangle. Slope, aspect, elevation, and topographic features influence fire spread. How fast a fire moves in feet per hour. For example, fires tend to spread faster up a slope than down one. Number 2. Spontaneous combustion is the ignition of organic matter, example, hay or coal without apparent cause, typically through heat generated internally by rapid oxidation. It doesn't require any external energy to start the combustion process. This reaction starts because of internal oxidation in the substance, which leads to the thermal process. If that particular substance reaches its ignition point temperature and has enough oxygen to start the combustion process, the substance starts burning on its own spontaneously. The rise in the temperature inside the substance is due to internal reactions, which are mostly heat evolving. The example of this spontaneous combustion is first, forest fire. Second is phosphorus burned spontaneously at room temperature. Third is the reaction of alkali metals when combined with water. Fourth is the bacterial composting inside organic materials. Fifth is many accidents in coal mine are due to the spontaneous combustion of coal. Number 3. Dangerous behavior of fire. Fire is so fatal when the following condition occurred. Number 1. Backdraft. It is a sudden and rapid, violent burning of heated gases in a confined area that occurs in the form of explosion. This may occur because of improper ventilation. If a room is not properly ventilated, highly flammable vapors may be accumulated such that when a door or window is suddenly opened, the room violently sucks the oxygen from the outside and simultaneously a sudden combustion occurs, which may happen as an explosion or combustion explosion. Number 2. Flashover. It is the sudden ignition of accumulated radical gases produced when there is incomplete combustion of fuels. It is the sudden burning of free radicals which is initiated by a spark or flash produced when temperature rises until flash point is reached. When accumulated volume of radical gases suddenly burns, there will be a very intense fire that is capable of causing flames to jump at a certain distance in the form of fireballs. Fireballs can travel to 100 yards in a few seconds. As you can see, the fire is burning the corner of the room, and as the fire begins to grow, it pumps more and more heat and flames and smoke into that overpressure above the fire. This is really important because as that smoke layer begins to heat up, they get closer and closer to their auto-ignition temperature until a point where everything in that room catches on fire about the same time. We were not able to create a video demonstration about bite back because it's too risky and of course, safety first. By the way, what is bite back? Bite back is a fatal condition that takes place when the fire resists extinguishment operation and becomes stronger and bigger instead. 4. Flash fire, better known as dust explosion. This may happen when the metal post that is completely covered with dust is going to be hit by lightning. The dust particle covering the metal burn simultaneously, thus creating a violent chemical reaction that produces a very bright flash followed by an explosion. A flash fire is a sudden, intense fire caused by ignition of a mixture of air and a dispersed flammable substance such as a solid, including dust, flammable or combustible liquid, such as aerosol or fine mist, or a flammable gas. It is characterized by high temperature, short duration, and a rapidly moving flame front. A flash fire ignites when oxygen and fuel mix together and come into a contact with a heat source that sparks the fire. These conditions create a flame that is characterized by high heat temperature and rapid movement. Let's proceed to the contradicting relationship of heat and temperature to be represented by ice and heated metal box. Heat versus temperature. Heat should not be confused with temperature, which is the measurement of the relative amount of heat energy contained within a given substance. Temperature is an intensity measurement, with the units in degrees in Celsius, centigrade, Fahrenheit, or Kelvin scales. Heat is the measurement of quantity and is given in British thermal units, BTU. Temperature is the measurement of the degrees of thermal agitation of molecules, the hotness or coldness of something. Thermometer is the instrument used to measure temperature and commonly expressed in degrees Celsius, degrees in Fahrenheit, and Kelvin. Although it is very easy to compare the relative temperatures of two substances by the sense of touch, it is impossible to evaluate the absolute magnitude of temperature by subjective reactions. Adding heat to substance, however, not only raises its temperature, causing it to impart a more acute sensation of warmth, but also produces alteration in several physical properties which may be measured with precision. There are three ways to transfer heat: conduction, convection, and radiation. First is conduction. It is the transfer of heat by molecular activity within a material or medium, usually a solid. Direct contact is the underlying factor in conduction. Example, if you touch this pan handle here, the pain you feel is the first result of conducted heat passing from the wood burning stove directly to your head. In a structural fire, superheated pipes, street girders, and other structural members such as walls and floors may conduct enough heat to initiate fires in other areas of the structure. 2. Convection. It is the transfer of heat through a circulating medium, usually air or liquid. Heat transfer by convected is strictly responsible for the spread of fire in structures.
Number 3. Radiation. Radiated heat moves in waves and rays much like sunlight. Radiated heat travels the speed as does visible light 186,000 miles per second. It is primarily responsible for the exposure hazards that develop and exist during a fire. Heat waves travel in a direct or straight line from their source until they strike an object. The heat that collects on the surface of the object or building in the path of the heat waves is subsequently absorbed into its mass through conduction. For example, if you go near the fire, the heat waves travels directly to its surrounding until they strike any objects. That is why even though we are not touching the fire or the handle of the pan, we can feel the heat radiating into our body, which makes the temperature warmer.
In conclusion, conduction requires physical contact between bodies or portion of bodies exchanging heat, but radiation does not require contact or the presence of any matter between the bodies. Convection occurs when a liquid or gas is in contact with a solid body at a different temperature and is always accompanied by the motion of the liquid or gas. The science dealing with the transfer of heat between bodies is called heat transfer. The physical methods by which energy in the form of heat can be transferred between bodies are conduction and radiation. A third method which also involves the motion of matter is called convection.